HOA story time. Misled by the property manager on the CC&Rs. I purchased a condo in California about 2 years ago. When I was in escrow, I noticed that the CC&R said that the building couldn't have any hard surface floors installed above the first floor. This, for obvious reasons, was a problem for me, so I brought it up to my real estate agent. The listing agent told him that many units in the building above the first floor have hard surface floors, and that as long as we hired a contractor that was pre-vetted by the HOA board, we could install hard surface floors in our unit. To verify this, I called the property manager, who confirmed this was the case. He said that the CC&Rs were out of date, but that there was an approval process that involved the board. I asked him if he needed any information other than the contractor that I was hiring, and he said no. He specifically said the specs weren't necessary to get the project approved. He would email the board and hopefully have an approval for me within a few days. After a few days, the property manager reached out to my flooring contractor and gave him the start and end dates for the project. We had an elevator reserved just for the use of the flooring contractor. He also spoke to my real estate agent and confirmed that the flooring project was approved. This was before closing. I have an email from my real estate agent to the property manager confirming these details, and I also had a phone conversation with the property manager about what an appropriate underlayment would involve, seeing as how the building has no written flooring specs that have to be adhered to. Flash forward 6 months, and my property manager reached out to me about noise issues with my floors. He was demanding that we get the floors IIC tested because the downstairs neighbor was hearing various noises. Instead of complying immediately, we spoke to the downstairs neighbor, who said that she mentioned that she could hear our footsteps, but that was months before we received the email. She requested that the property manager listen to the noise to see if he thought that it was normal, and he declined. She said that she never formally requested a sound test and that she never spoke to the board about the issue. The noises weren't that noticeable, in her opinion, only different than what she was used to with the previous owners. The issue was ultimately resolved by putting down a few carpets. Coincidentally, or not, we received this email the same day that we asked about the procedure for joining the HOA board. Last month, we were dealing with water damage to our ceiling from a year-long roof leak. After an odd conversation with our property manager, who wouldn't give me a timetable for when repairs would be completed, I hired a mold remediation expert to come and assess the damage. He determined that there was likely mold in my ceiling, and he provided moisture readings to show that water had accumulated in the ceiling and hadn't dried after 2 weeks without rain. I sent this info to my property manager along with the quote that the mold remediation expert provided. During this exchange, where the property manager was trying to convince me not to talk to the board about the issue, he brought up my floors again. This time, however, he claimed that he had no knowledge of us installing hard surface floors and that he needed to know how and when we installed them. This made no sense. Even if he'd forgotten that we'd had them approved, he had been in the unit no less than 5 times to look at the leak in our ceiling. He also came to the unit when the contractors were cutting the floorboards because he thought they were being too loud. Because of this, we assembled all of the communications that we had had with our flooring contractor, real estate agent, and the property manager, around 60 pages of emails and text messages, and we went to the next HOA meeting. We asked if they were aware that we had hard surface floors, and they said no. They also said that they've never approved hard surface floors for any unit above the first floor, and if they had, it would have been reflected in the minutes. When we pointed out several other upper floor units that we know had hard surface floors installed within the last 3 years, they said that they'd have to investigate. They then went on to claim that they didn't believe that any of our communications with our property manager suggested that he approved the project, even though he replied to an email mentioning that we're moving forward after receiving his approval. And even if he had approved the project, it doesn't constitute an HOA board approval, so the floors were installed illegally. The property manager denies that he ever communicated with me about the floors, despite there being multiple texts and emails directed to him about the issue, and he claims that he either didn't see the parts mentioning the floors or he didn't receive the messages at all. At the meeting, they said that we'd have to change our floors back to carpet, pending a vote, but we haven't received a formal notice to do so yet. I frankly have no idea how someone could look at the communications that we had with the building and determine that we weren't completely misled about having board approval. They claim that the CCNRs are clear about hard surface floors not being allowed, but if the property manager tells me that they are allowed and that the CCNRs are in the process of being updated, who am I to doubt him? Furthermore, I reached out to both approved flooring contractors and they told me that they've installed many hard surface floors above the first floor, 2 of them being my downstairs and next door neighbors. At this point, I'm just very confused and stressed about this whole situation. From my point of view, either the board is allowing people to install whatever floors they want, but pretend they don't know about it, or the property manager is approving projects without their knowledge. With a quick internet search, I was able to find 6 units that had hardwood floors, all above the first floor. It just seems unfair that I have to change my floors if other people are allowed to have them. I'm just at a loss because the floors I have installed were very expensive. Do you agree? Obviously you have proof of the manager lying and then ignoring problems. So if you're required to get carpet, get the money out of the project manager or get an HOA on selective enforcement. Now this is totally right. If you have the proof, you need to show that. He can't play dumb. It's his fault for messing up, not yours. You take him down. What would you do? If you want to get cool badges and see some videos early while supporting me in the channel, click the join button to become a member. Thanks. Insane neighbor story time. Me, a 28-year-old female, and my husband, a 29 male, have a neighbor who's a mid-40s male, he always wears baggy jeans that just sit under his bum, who lives a couple blocks from our house. He comes to our house with his large white dog often and stands in front of our gate looking into our yard without knocking or saying anything to let us know that he's even there. We were friendly in the beginning, until he did this repeatedly almost every other day for months. It started around August. One time, I was watering my garden, and I turned to see him staring into the yard from the other side of the gate, staring at me. After this, I put a privacy screen on our gate, but he didn't get the hint and still came to our house often. Which, most days, I'm home alone because I work remotely. He would wait in front of our gate for 10 to 30 minutes at a time. Then my husband told him to stop doing that because it would set off our ring alarm. So he only started coming up to our gate momentarily, but then would stand at the end of our driveway and on our neighbor's driveway looking into our house, but still far enough from our cameras to detect him. His excuse for doing this is because he says his dog likes our dog. His dog would even eat the treats that our mailman would set on our packages on the days that he came by. Our dog does not like his dog. Now, even though he does not wait directly in front of our gate anymore, if he sees me walk my dog in the neighborhood, he knows the route I take, so he'll wait at the end of my route near my house, so I have to pass him when I walk by. He's basically waiting for me at the end of our walk, forcing an interaction while also not standing directly on our property. He's also driven by me when I walk my dog, and he'll purposely slow down to my walking pace. Once, he even honked at me to get my attention when I was trying to ignore him. Aside from my husband telling him to not hang out at our house, when I run into him on walks, I'll try my best to ignore him and avoid confrontation in hopes that he gets the hint. He makes me so uncomfortable, and I hate that I feel like I need to bluntly confront him so he gets the freaking hint, because apparently my husband telling him to stop sitting in front of our house and me ignoring him isn't enough of a signal that we don't appreciate him hovering and lingering around our home. Even several of our neighbors have asked us what the deal is with the guy and the big dog. Our neighbor also mentioned that he sees him stand by the school bus stop in our neighborhood in the morning when the kids are going to school. I've decided that the next time I see him, I'll confront him and I'll tell him to stop hovering around our home. If he continues to hover, I'm considering filing a restraining order. I don't want it to go to this extreme, but this man is very unsettling to me and makes me feel unsafe in my own neighborhood. I'd do something, restraining order or cops, something to lay your foot down and just stomp it down. That's what I say. What would you do? Neighbor from heck sits in his car all day right outside of my home office. I bought this house 9 months ago and have had nothing but problems with the neighbor directly next door. He's an unemployed alcoholic in his 60s, and this winter he has been sitting in his car in the driveway for hours every day. I'm talking 6 to 8 hours consistently. I don't even see him get up to go to the bathroom. Sometimes he sits out there until 11 at night. His headlights just blast into my house, and he's totally being a disturbing creep and dirtbag. The neighbor from heck driveway and mine isn't shared, but there's nothing between them, so my car is parked next to his. I work from home and my office is right by the driveway, so this is how I know about this crappy behavior and why it affects me so much. He sits there and just talks super loud on speakerphone, gets drunk, smokes cigarettes, he blasts music, and is probably doing some illegal substances. I'm sick of it. It's like there's a crappy parking attendant in my driveway at all times. There isn't much I can say to him at this point, as he isn't on my property, he is just right next to it. It's like when siblings fight and point a finger at each other, but then say, "I'm not touching you," even though they're all up in their space. His girlfriend owns the house, but doesn't live there in the week. When she comes back on the weekends, he won't sit in his car like he normally does, which is nice, but then the fighting starts. They scream at each other constantly, outside where I can clearly hear them, and they throw crap around their house. I really can't stand these jerks, and I hope they move soon. Apparently, they got another house in town and are painting and redecorating it, so I'm hoping they just sell this one next to me. I called my lawyer, who said that any retaliation will likely lead to further retaliation from them. I think the only solution is to call the cops when he's drinking in the driveway with his car on, or talk to his girlfriend and tell her about the behavior. I have heard her explicitly say that she doesn't want him sitting in the driveway in a screaming match that they had outside. Or could just build a fence so I don't have to look at his dumb butt wasting space. I needed to vent because I'm confused and ticked off. Is he doing this on purpose to try to screw with me, or is he generally this much of a loser that his car is the main hangout? Who does that? The lawyer says don't push it, but there's gotta be something that you can do with him messing with you like this. How would you handle it? Become the HOA president and uncover a very shady situation. So I've lived in our neighborhood for 10 years. Didn't pay attention to the HOA for most of that time. Now we have kids and we're disappointed with the condition of the common areas. I attended a meeting and ran for the board seat and became the president in October 2020. I began digging and uncovered a very suspicious arrangement. The previous president had served for 14 years. She's the current VP. In 2010, she hired her spouse as operations manager. That operations manager, he gets paid $1,600 a month, roughly 20% of our association's revenue. Now, this expense and arrangement had never been disclosed to the community from everything that I've seen. The annual audit does not detail it, the quarterly treasurer's reports don't detail it, and when directly asked to give a verbal breakdown of monthly expenses during a meeting, the HOA press somehow forgot to include her husband's paycheck, the largest monthly expense. Now, I've been able to access bank statements going back to 2015, and there are monthly payments of at least $1,600 going back to that time. There's also a period that they paid their daughter $200 a month for social media management. Our bylaws require the president and the treasurer sign every check. This has not been adhered to. The former president signs every check herself. When I tried to delegate a task to our operations manager, I was told it was not in his contract. I began requesting said contract over the course of the next 3 months. I was told that they'd get it to me, but they did not until yesterday. I was finally given the contract. It was in a manila envelope with a sticker reading "confidential" across the front. What? So each page has a confidential sticker also on the top. I was told this is the original and I'd have to return it. Now, it gets weirder. The effective date on the contract is September 2020, 1 month before I was elected. I don't have any proof at the moment, but I find it very hard to believe this contract existed before I started asking for it. The contract was signed by the operations manager and the 3 previous board members, 2 of which are still current members. There's no dates listed with the signatures. Now, as a side note, the former president and previous board members, they're close. A Golden Girls type of situation. The term of the contract is for 3 years and can only be canceled by a unanimous decision by the board. Our bylaws state that a simple majority of the board can make any decision. I have access to the HOA email, and I found no record of the board approving this decision. I've not looked into previous meeting minutes to see if it was officially approved. I just have a hunch that it wasn't, but a unanimous decision of the board can be made at any time. I've also not found any indication of a contract that predates the 921. This whole situation reeks, and I'd very much like to end the contract and get rid of the board member. Any thoughts? Do you agree with this? The contract cannot override the bylaws. You need a majority of the board behind you to do anything, but this is clearly embezzlement. Yeah, this whole thing looks really shady. If you had a lawyer that could detail and go in and check out every one of these points, then maybe that HOA would be shaking in their boots. What do you think? What would you do? This story has updates. Neighbor Karen threatening to sue me if I don't give them thousands to compensate for the damage from Hurricane Fiona. We bought this home last year. We lived next door to some retired boomers. The wife, Buddy, we'll call her, our Karen, was very friendly at first. She would always want to talk with me about gardening, and she liked talking to my daughter. However, her dog was insanely aggressive. I couldn't do anything in my yard without the dog barking or growling and trying to just jump the fence at me. I could never even talk to people because this dog would bark for an hour straight until I gave up trying to enjoy the yard and went inside. So we're currently saving up for a new roof. It'll cost about $5 to $10 grand, and we're going to have all the gutters replaced too. Hurricane Fiona hit and blew our gutters off. It was terrifying. In the morning, my husband did a walk around and saw the gutters in their backyard. While cleaning up storm debris, the wife, Buddy, Karen, approached me saying that my gutter dented her car and will cost her several thousand to fix, and that she'll have to pay a $1,000 deductible. I didn't know how to respond because I didn't see any significant damage. Mind you, she would regularly brag to me about how she bought her home in the 80s, that her $70,000 mortgage was paid off and had a new roof, new driveway, and painted her roof and doors and window framing a tacky black color. She also lives in a duplex, and it completely clashes with her neighbor. So I went inside and I discussed what to do with my husband, and he said right now, nothing. I called my insurance company and let them know what had happened to our roof and the gutters, and that my neighbor wants to make a claim against us and is insisting that she has photo proof we were negligent. So a few days later, she comes up to me demanding my insurance, my number, and my last name because of the damage to her car. So I took a look at the car, and I don't see any damage aside from a golf ball sized dent on the roof. I asked if it was from the gutters falling, and she insists that it is. I asked, well, how did she know? She said that in the morning, she came outside and found them on top of her car. So, during the hurricane of the decade, apparently, the wind that snapped off my gutters around 2 a.m. landed on her car and then waited patiently for her to wake up. I gave her my insurance info anyway, and I tell her to figure it out with them. She then begins going off on me and how I intentionally let this happen, that I'm trying to hurt her home, that this is my fault, how she'll have to sue my insurance and me, and that it'll cost thousands to fix and I better pay up. And then she throws in how she's been nice to my 4-year-old daughter. She then says that I should have ripped the gutters off before the hurricane. So I just tell her, hey, look, I am not interested in conflict with you, and I just going to go through insurance. She then tries to tell me how my falling gutter also damaged her heat pump, the one that was currently on and looked fine. So after this, I went outside and I took photos of her car, I took photos of her heat pump, and I noticed no significant damage to either. Yet, here she is, threatening to sue me for thousands. I would have even agreed to help her with the car repair if she wanted, but instead, she jumps to suing me, and I don't know how she's going to stop being nice to my child. First update. So I called my insurance and I explained to them what had happened. They'll get back to me, and if I have to pay damages, then well, we can do so, but I don't think the damage was $5,000, and her heat pump was definitely not damaged by my gutter. So I called the city bylaw enforcement on her dog. I got fed up with being nice and understanding with a crappy dog who I always worried would jump the fence one day and harm my children. So compliance said that they would talk to her and that they'll mostly go down the education route. And they said that they'll go to her home, they'll assess the situation, and they'll just talk to her about how she has 6 months to get her dog under control, or they're going to start sending her tickets. So she tried to come to my door to argue with me again, and I told her that she needs to talk to my husband, a military man who is not nearly as patient as I am, or keep talking to insurance. And I filed a claim and told them to assess her damages too, and that I'm closing my door now. She tried knocking again, and at this point, I called the non-emergency police line and told them that she keeps demanding money from me, that she's insisting the hurricane damage to her home was my fault and she won't leave me alone. So compliance from the city showed up to talk to her about her dog, and then the police officer showed up and told her to leave me alone, that if she keeps harassing me, he will come back again, and that his own mother couldn't have predicted a tree would crash on her deck. I couldn't have predicted my gutter falling off. She apologized, and the officer said that she needs to give me space, and I told him if insurance determines that I need to pay up, I will, but only if they say so. Now hopefully she'll listen and leave me alone. Now she's a very Karen-y type of person who felt embarrassed to have city compliance and a police officer at her door, so maybe don't freaking harass your neighbors and I won't have to retaliate. I'm done being a victim of abuse who just sits by and takes it just to keep the peace and the other person who clearly doesn't even want to maintain. The final update. She says that she has pictures but wouldn't show me them. But my neighbor has just now tried to harass and extort thousands in response to this hurricane damage that's worth a couple hundred, and then started to harass me. So I called the police in the city on her to aggressive dog, and she put a cement barrier to separate our driveways. I contacted someone to assess the dent on her car, and then they came by and tried to approach her about it. He showed his business card and went to introduce himself, and she responded with screaming at him that they already have someone and to go away. He then came to our door and told us about this, and then was like, "Hey, I tried talking to your unhinged neighbor, pardon my French, but what a bee." This poor strange man was just trying to do his job and got screamed at for it. I felt bad. They said that there was no paint damages, that the dent would be about $350 to pull, not the thousands that she's claiming, and there is no evidence whatsoever that her heat pump got damaged by the storm. He also said that if our brown aluminum gutter is what caused the damage, then he feels like it would have looked different or left paint behind. So at least with the photos that I have, I feel a bit better knowing that they can't try and get thousands if for some reason we're considered at fault. Even then, it's questionable since, hurricane, but I'm still stressed and I feel bad because I have a lot of trauma. As someone who is a very timid, quiet person who is also a stay-at-home mom and housewife, how do I stop being afraid of this neighbor? She would wait until my husband or any visitors were gone and then try to start arguing with me like she was trying to intimidate or bully me into paying her money. I don't know how to be that don't give a crap person about this like my husband seems to be, but right now I'm just trying to avoid her, and the police told her to leave me alone. But I'm scared she'll try to repeatedly sue me in small claims court or something, since she has a lot more money than we do. Holy insufferable Karen, yeah, she has money, she might try to sue you, but if you stand your ground and you say no, she is intimidating you because she thinks she can walk all over. That is what it is. You don't let those bullies win, you stand up your ground, you grow tall, and that shuts them down. How do you handle this Karen and her crazy lies? I was the only employee and quit because my boss is a Karen. Now she's suing me. Posted by Any Fortune 1811. I started working in a small fabric store about 2 months ago. The hours were short, and it wasn't all that busy, and the owner seemed nice at first. The drama began the moment I started. I noticed that there was no cash register. I was used to working with an electronic cash register for my 2 previous jobs, but here, checkout was done differently. She showed me the little cash box that even a 2-year-old could pick the lock off, and the price tags, or rather lack thereof. She wanted the price of everything to be hidden so the customer could make up their mind before they find out the real price. Some items didn't even have a price. She was also particular about how she wanted the slips of paper with our revenue written and where she wanted them placed. She even told me to guess, which always ended with me guessing far too low because the stuff was not great quality. A button for 1.8 euros, regular jersey fabric for $24.99, dull scissors for $27, and a little money pouch for $35. Half the stuff was absolutely mental. She said she needed assistance because she wanted to start some sort of training I don't even know. I should have noticed something then because she was adamant about leaving the store to me and A. I was hired as a help, 10 hours a week max. She wanted to raise that threshold to 20 hours or, if she had her way, 30 hours. Mind you, I'm studying full-time, and I was also working for the General Students Committee. I got exams coming up, and this work was meant to be a side hustle. I had plenty on my plate. And then A quit. She lost her mind. She tried to force A to work, who did not give a dang and let herself be fired. I had a little trial shift where she wanted to get to know me and show me everything. She let me handle some customers. One of them was a little girl who wanted to sew herself a Greek toga. Picture a chitin, and I got big time excited because I used to sew costumes and knew exactly how you could easily sew something like that. I told her how I would do it, and the girl was super happy and told me that she'd come back with her parents. B was not happy. We don't do that kind of stuff here, like costumes. This is a serious business. I got reprimanded for that. Yeah, she was also a hardcore Christian. She kept a Bible next to the cash register and told me that she wouldn't carry anything that goes against her religion. The only example she gave me was skulls. No skulls, not even during Halloween, not even in combination with the pirate theme. The first real problem came when I wanted to be paid at the end of my first month. Usually, you sign a personnel questionnaire when you first sign your employment contract. She somehow managed to forget about it, then called me the day it was due to tell me to come in. I was busy that day, and then told me to come in on Monday to sign it. I overslept that day and I was late, and I had a mental breakdown because she gave me the impression that I was going to get fired. And on Monday, as I rushed into the store, told me that I was going to be fined because the document was late. Since I'm such a good person, I'm going to cover the fine this time, but if this happens again, that's going to be deducted from your pay. She also said that she would have offered me a permanent position, like I had not explicitly told her I couldn't do more than 10 to 15 hours per week. She continued to dodge questions about my pay though, saying that she couldn't send it because some secretary in the payroll office was on holiday. I don't even know what that had to do with anything. And then telling me that we might need to deduct something from my pay in retrospect. Yeah, no. The second real problem arose when a customer came in demanding her finished order, 2 small purses for her kids who were about to start school in 3 days to be embroidered and a little ribbon sewn on. About 30 minutes of work. I, however, couldn't find them since it wasn't with the other projects, and after I called B, the Karen, she yelled at me that there's nothing she could do about it since she's driving. The customer heard it since she was literally screaming at me. B had talked to the customer before, saying that it would take 1.5 weeks. That, however, was 3 weeks ago. Then changed that to come back Thursday, not even making a promise that it would be done by then. As the customer got angrier, at her, not at me, mind you, she finally got the message and rushed into the shop 2 hours later to finish the project, not saying a word to me. The sweet lady from down the street, who had seen everything go down and comforted me after, brought me a coffee and, without acknowledging my boss, she said loud enough for B to hear, "Don't let it or her get you down." I was grateful for that after a long day of stress. When another customer complained after she sewed the broken zipper back onto her skirt, but failed to notice the broken slider thing on the zipper, I called her again because I can't do returns. "Well, what the heck is this girl doing with that? It's broken again already." And then went on to call the young woman broke for not wanting to pay €30 to exchange the zipper. Yes, the woman heard it all and was shocked. I saved her the €30 by simply inserting a new slider, and I told her to be careful with it. €0.8 and the customer was overjoyed. Haven't heard back from her since. B also accused me of being late because a customer who was supposed to get her order didn't show up. I'm always 15 minutes early, and luckily that morning I took a photo for my hubby when I reached the store because I was digging my outfit. Lucky. She also accused me of not being friendly after someone, she didn't say who, saw people arguing in front of our shop. After I went digging with our shop's neighbors, I found out that no one saw anything, and even B wouldn't elaborate as to what these people looked like, when it was, or why the person thought the people were unhappy with my service. Ruined my evening, that one, especially since she sent me an array of voicemails asking when I would send my report, voicemail via some message board that I have to send after every single day, talking about what happened, and that she would like me to still be in the store when I send it in case she has something to add. Like I'm gonna wait 30 minutes for you to reply, after spending 15 minutes cleaning up the store, counting cash, writing your slip of paper, and bringing all the knickknacks that you keep outside inside. Sure, pay me then. She is also incredibly dirty. Like, I get leaving stuff lying around, but I don't get why 2 coffee mugs have to be kept inside the store to develop mold, or why you would leave a singular used fork with food still on it on your desk, visible for customers, or why you would leave milk out for a week in our 1x1 meter break room, 40x40 inches, which wasn't even usable because there was trash piled up in the corner since we don't have a trash can. She kept belittling everything that I did. I used to do PR, and I was offering to take pictures for us to upload on our Google business page. She told me no, she doesn't want to build an online presence. What? And when I told her people like to Google fabric store and see what shops pop up and then decide where to go, she told me that I was wrong, and that's not how people shop. I was also saying that she should maybe take her name out of the business Instagram's name feature, the little nickname thing under the @ because no one was going to find the shop with an @ like name.of_the_shop. She said no, people would find it. I'm studying this, and you'd think that she'd put a little faith in me. It also cost nothing. I would have done it all for free. Thank God I didn't. When she told me to decorate our shop window for back-to-school items, I yet again could do no right. Yes, we are a fabric store. Yes, we sell plates and cups now. First, I had to wash the plates because when I found them, they were sprawled all over the floor as if someone knocked them over and thought, OP will clean it up. I had to buy a pack of paper towels in my non-existent lunch break, and she seriously said, I told you I'd bring some. The shop can't afford those right now. She didn't bring any. I needed them now, and they were literally 80 pence. If you can't afford that, then maybe your shop shouldn't exist. I ended up gifting them to her so she would shut up because she went on about, that's not the point, you disobeyed me. Like I was her slave. She then told me to redecorate the window 3 times because she wasn't satisfied but wouldn't tell me what was wrong. And then she hit me with, I thought you'd know what I wanted by now. Literally, just do it yourself then. I literally had to move your craft table, 4 heavy blocks, and all your ugly decor to even reach the window, 3 times. Another weird thing was when I lost my notebook that I keep for my work schedule and later found it hidden under a piece of fabric on her desk. What's weird about it is how it got lost during the time that I had to tell her my work hours so she could pay me. It's lucky I also tracked that stuff in the calendar on my phone. It's also not like she didn't know it's my notebook. I'm the only employee and it's got my name and my handwriting inside of it. Scheduling was a completely different issue. Every job I worked at, you were asked if you could cover certain days, what your schedule was like for the month, and then you got your work schedule, usually a week before the next month. She expected me to tell her 1 to 2 months in advance when and why I was busy. And if it's anything other than university related, she would schedule me anyways. Hubby and I had a 5-day vacation planned for our anniversary, our first actual vacation away, and when I asked 2 months in advance if I could have those days off, she told me no, that's not a valid reason, and how dare I even think I deserve a vacation after 2.5 months of work. I hadn't seen my family in quite a while, even though they live only 2 hours away, because of this. She constantly forgets that I'm a help, not a full-time employee, not to mention the guilt tripping. The business is suffering because you don't want to work. I'm going to lose the shop if you don't do as I say. You're an employee, not a help. I can force you to work, I would be more considerate if she had posted an actual job offer somewhere other than her Facebook page. A post that got 4 likes and no comments. It's been 2 months. She's not even trying. So when she sent me this month's schedule 2 days before the beginning of the month, I told her immediately that I couldn't make it on the first weekend. She said that I had to. I said that I had university stuff, and then we stopped communicating. I drove home after my university thing to see my family, and then the railway employees went on strike, all trains were canceled, so I was stuck with my family. Thankfully, a friend offered to drive me home so I could make it in time for my shift. But when I came in yesterday, I didn't even have the chance to tell her any of that. She took me aside, said that we should establish better communication, said I'm a horrible, uncommunicative person for not wanting to discuss scheduling issues after a long shift, and also that she was going to deduct the hours that I wasn't working on the first weekend of the month from my pay, about 70 euros. I was kind of ticked, and as she walked out the door, she said this. Oh, but I got a lot of good feedback from customers about you. Can't pay my rent with compliments, Karen. Everyone's been bugging me for weeks to quit because she has mental issues, going as far as to say that it would be better if the shop simply burned down. I defended her up to that point, but yesterday I reached my limit. I called my mom, told her everything, and my mom asked our lawyers for advice. Yeah, what she's doing is big time illegal where I live. So we drafted my resignation letter, and I sent her a lengthy message at the end of the day, saying I wouldn't be coming in the next day, and so on. She lost her mind. I got bombarded with messages saying that she was going to contact a lawyer about me stealing from her. I charged my phone while I was at work because I had to be at her beck and call every second of the day, and theft of sensitive data. I sometimes took home my calculations, which were literally just numbers, no address, no names, and so on, since we don't have an electronic cash registry. And then she ended her tantrum by banning me from entering the store. I'm glad my family has my back, but I'd much rather have a boss that's not insane. Update. It's been a while, and after threatening her with a lawsuit, I finally got my money. No cuts, no more messages, nothing. I was forced, however, to mail in my resignation and the key, which cost me €6 because I wasn't allowed to give it to her in person. I'm still very much banned from the store. I also forgot some other equally stupid stuff that she had me do or that I had to live through during my time there. Like that one time, a friend of hers walked into the store, treated me like a servant, and then accused me of hiding our opening times, which were literally right there. I asked her how I could help because she looked kind of lost, and she just said, I wanted to talk to Karen, so I don't know what you could help me with. She then asked when she would be in, and I replied with Monday, no wait, Tuesday, because we just had to change our opening times ever since A quit, and she kinda lost her crap. Why are you lying to me? What are you hiding? If you meant Tuesday, then why would you say Monday? I wanted to leave right then and there. It was pretty dang weird. The weekend after I quit, I got a call from an old friend though, who basically said, hey, do you still hate your job? Would you like to come work for us? He's heard all about Karen and seen some of my PR work and told his bosses about me. I had an interview for a position in their social media and marketing team yesterday, and today I got the message that they would like me to come work for them. The best thing is, since their headquarters are 2 hours away, I'm allowed to work from home, and even if I have to go to the office, all my travel expenses are taken care of. My husband and I also did end up going on that vacation. Yay for that. This lady was not a good example of a person, Christian woman, or anything. She should take a self-assessment and realize what she is doing. I'm sorry you had to go through this, OP. Sue HOA Karen. She tows me and builds on my land, but I'm not in the HOA. Click the video on your screen to find out what happens to nasty HOA Karen, and I'll see you there.